you are going to feel included, whether you like it or not. Welcome to The Big Puzzle. In this podcast, we explore the subtle connections between science, religion, politics, economics, and history. One piece at a time, we unveil the big picture of this shared experience that we call life. In the last couple of episodes, we covered two of the three pieces that constitute what I call the three sisters of doom. And those are diversity and equity. So today it's time for the third sister, inclusion. When I started to prepare for this episode, I realized I don't really understand what they mean by inclusion. So I started to do some research. One of the first things that I found is an article by Paolo Gaudiano, and that is in the Forbes magazine in March 2021. And the title is Diversity is what you see, inclusion is what you do. So I read the article and I not only disagree with the content, but I even disagree strongly with the title. Because diversity, like we talked in the previous episode, is not really what you see. That is the wrong kind of diversity. Diversity is really in places where you can't see it, but you know for sure that it's there. That's the important part, the useful part of diversity. I don't care about the content of melanin in your skin. I care much more about the content of your life experiences and everything, all the dimensions that make you a really rich, interesting person. And I hope that you feel the same way about me. You don't judge me just because of my exterior attributes, but you try to learn about what is inside of me, what makes me unique, like we all are. But that's only part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that inclusion is not what you do. And I will explain what I mean by that. To understand better what inclusion is in the context of DEI, I just ran a simple query in Google. And the query was, what does inclusion mean in DEI? Then I grabbed the first responses and I just copied them in one document. I started analyzing them. And to start with, seemed to be a lot of different definitions. But then I started to focus on, some wording that seems to repeat over and over. So one word that stood out immediately was the word welcome, welcoming, welcomed. So many variations of that idea of being welcoming. And I thought, well, is this what inclusion means? Does it mean that you welcome people, right? Well, if that's it, it shouldn't be too hard to implement, right? It's very easy to welcome people. But then I noticed some other words and started noticing a pattern. So for instance, one other word that stands out is the variations of the word value. So you have value, valuing. Also you have variations of the word respect, like respected, respecting, respectful. Also found that for whatever reason, you should be embracing stuff. The other word that is also all over the place is supporting, support, supported. Also found a lot of diversity, difference, differences. Even some words like culture or environments. So all these words help me understand a little better what they're trying to do and where the problem really lays. Because who would oppose to any of those things? I mean, who would oppose to be welcoming or to respect people or to value people, support people, and embrace things. So all those seem to be desirable traits, desirable actions. But the problem is in another word that is there, and the word is feels. Because this is not about what you do, it's about how people feel. And that is where the main problem lays, because you don't know how people feel. You have zero control over how people feel. Well, you might have some control, but really you don't know. You can't see inside of the head of other people to see the effects of what you're doing. So even your best intentions could not be received as intended. That is where the problem lays. So it's not about being welcoming, it's about feeling welcome. It's not about respecting somebody, it's about feeling respected. It's about feeling supported, feeling valued. And that is where the main problem lays. So these kind of initiatives open the door to some potential problems. So let's say that you have a coworker that reaches HR in your company, and they say that they don't feel valued by you. They don't feel respected by you. So HR would call you immediately in panic and tell you, well, you're making somebody feel unvalued, unwelcome, unrespected. And the first thing you would say, okay, well, what did I do? And the answer is, I don't know. The burden of the proof is not on the accuser. It's in you. You need to change whatever you have to change until that person decides to exonerate you. So it gives absolute power to the feelings of somebody. And it doesn't really value, there's no way to tell which of the things that you do are the ones that are producing that effect. And sometimes there's really no explanation. Even the person who's accusing you, they can't tell. When I was thinking about this, I realized that I had a recent personal experience that I hadn't noticed that it was strongly related to the idea of inclusion. I was volunteering in some service, and some people started to accuse me, not directly to me, but to somebody else, saying that I make them feel fearful. I'm 6'4". I won't tell you my weight, but it's significant, so I take some volume. English is not my first language. You probably notice sometimes I use words incorrectly. I don't conjugate the verbs like I should. There's nothing I could do about just being myself. And I know that I'm not a rude person. I know that I'm not unkind. So my first reaction when they told me that somebody was feeling, threatened or something, I asked, okay, who is this person? I want to talk to them. I want to, figure it out and see what did I do. And the answer was, no, you can't know who they are because they are afraid of you. And so long story short, I ended up leaving. Problem was that I was asked to change. Oh, you need to change. And I said, well, I'm not going to change if I can talk to the person and they can tell me what did I do. If I need to apologize, I will apologize. I need to explain myself, I will explain myself. But again, the power was not on my side. The power was on the accuser, and I had no way to solve the problem. If you think about it, you are exposed to those same circumstances. And by the end of the video, we're going to talk a little more about this. But yeah, it's these initiatives, these policies are not really helping anybody. So that is bad enough. But unfortunately, it's not the end of the story. If we go back to all these definitions of inclusion, there's also something that stands out in almost all of them. And you can read phrases like reach their full potential, make meaningful contribution, their voices will be heard, unlock the power, all people participate in decision making, empowers individuals. Yeah, they sound great. What the heck do they mean? how do you know what somebody's full potential? How do you unlock whatever power people have? How do you empower individuals? Empower for what? People participate, all people participate in decision making. So let's focus on the last one. Does that mean that in a company, let's say that the lawyers of the company are talking about a lawsuit that they have to prepare for? So should I invite the janitors to participate in the decision making? And on the other hand, when the janitors are talking about the supplies that they need and planning their work, should they have all the lawyers there helping them with their decision making? This doesn't really make any sense. All people cannot participate and should not participate in all decisions. That's a terrible idea because we specialize and we don't know about certain stuff. But again, this idea of inclusion, it has a very important logical flaw. If you have inclusion, that means that you have a limit. You include, so think about the etymology of the word. And inclusion is the same, just the same etymology than closure and enclosure and close. And all those words that have this idea of being inside versus being outside. To exclude is to keep outside. So if there is an inside and it's an outside, well, that means that somebody should be in the outside. If nobody's in the outside and everybody's in the inside, there's no limit and there's no inclusion. With the previous example, so when your company is making a decision, should they invite their competitors to make a decision? Should they be included as well? So where is your limit? Is it your limit your department? Is your limit your company? Is your limit your country? There's no limits. Obviously, when you can't define something, well, you really can't implement anything useful. But the other part, is that not all ideas are good. And rejection is an important part of the learning process. I know throughout my life, I proposed a lot of terrible ideas. And I'm very glad that they were rejected because it forced me to rethink them. And sometimes I doubled down when I thought I was right. Sometimes I realized what they were trying to tell me and I changed my mind and I changed my ideas and I came up with better ideas. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. So this idea of, let's, kumbaya and let's all just share everything, and it doesn't really make any sense. And it doesn't help anybody. It just makes a mess for everybody. The bottom line is that you cannot create policies on feelings. First of all, there's no way to measure the compliance of those policies. How do you know if people are feeling, included? How do you know they're feeling valued? Are you going to ask them? Maybe we should follow the example of North Korea that, their latest survey by the government showed that 100% of the people were extremely happy. Policies on feelings make no sense. And also, even if you can come up with a policy that everybody has to follow, again, diversity gets in the way. I'm mostly an introvert. I don't enjoy being in crowds. I'd rather be, in a dark corner with my computer. I know that I should, that is not a good thing for me, so I try to push myself out of that all the time. But it's really uncomfortable. So my comfort zone is really small. But when my company or groups or friends or whatever, they decide that they're going to include me, sometimes I don't want to be included. When they invite me to a party, well, thank you. I appreciate the gesture, but it's not something I enjoy. So are you going to force me to be included based on somebody else's definition? So how do we handle that? Because there are some other people who are extroverts that love all those activities, and good for them. More power to you. But everybody's unique, so including somebody doesn't necessarily help them the way we think it should. So all these policies will fail when they try to do a one-size-fits-all in this inclusion initiative, let's say. But the other part is also, like we discussed earlier, that these initiatives can be weaponized and will be weaponized. In the past, you had people who had some antisocial behavior. And I'm not talking about being an introvert. It's somebody who's always looking to be offended and create problems where there are no problems. And I'd be surprised if you never encounter one of them. Maybe we all are in a certain way. But these policies give them the power, giving a strong power over other people. Because, yeah, we all go to these trainings about inclusion, we, check the boxes, and then we go and do our, the things that we have to do in our jobs. We don't think too much about that. But some people take them very seriously. And they start saying, well, people have to make me feel valued. People have to make me feel respected. And they will go around making a hell out of everybody else's life until they feel the way they want to feel. That is actually probably the biggest problem about this, because when you implement these initiatives, you start normalizing that behavior. So everybody, HR, the bosses, everybody has to cater to these people. Inclusion is a solution to a non-problem, because we had a better alternative, and it was called to be nice. So there were some generally accepted set of behaviors that were considered necessary to for a workplace or for a group of people. You had to say hello, you need to say thank you, you need to say I'm sorry when you make a mistake, you welcome people, you do not interrupt them when they're speaking, you smile, you are kind. So all those things, we had them, and they worked pretty well. Not only was something socially expected, but it was a good strategy for companies, because, people like to work with other people who are nice to them. And the only thing that they need to do is to be nice to the others. So that is what we had. But now we are replacing it with a set of rules, a set of forceful policies that destroy actually the niceness. Now everybody's afraid about offending somebody. Sometimes you offend without even knowing. You offend by existing, white enough to be accused of having some kind of privilege. And it was funny that I became a citizen of the United States recently, last year, and people talking about the white privilege when I couldn't even vote, even though I was legally in the country, and everybody else had a lot more privileges than I had. Even for people who have these antisocial behaviors, these initiatives are a problem, because now it's more difficult to be hired. So when people notice that you could become a problem, that you could become an easily offended person, they're going to figure out how not to hire you, or how not to include you in their teams, how not to interact with you. And before we had, again, niceness, we had kindness, and you would tolerate people. Well, they are like this, they get offended, try not to, do your best. But now it's not that simple, because when they get offended, they can really ruin your life. And we see that more and more. And again, like I was saying, and this goes back to the first piece of the puzzle when we're talking about normality. With these initiatives, we're normalizing that. What used to be outliers now is accepted and even promoted. That is not helping anybody, except for the small number of people who are selling DEI to everybody else. So my invitation, if I can give you a homework like I usually do, is to try to find places where kindness could be better. I think that the only way to get rid of all these crazy initiatives is by showing practically how the previous alternatives work much better. So if somebody's going to get offended, it will happen. You know, it happened in the past, it will happen in the future. It's something we need to deal with. But is there any place that you can be more kind? See all those opportunities, find those opportunities, and act on those. Well, that would be for this piece. With this, we close the 3 pieces of DEI. I hope I made a strong case against those. But not only that, this is not about opposing, it's about replacing it with something better. And I believe that we can do that. So that will be this for this week. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing, sharing it with other people. And well, I hope to see you in the next piece of the big puzzle.